Yeah, we're getting down to the brass tacks, if you will, on back to school. I already noted it's Lori Laughlin's 56th birthday. The mom involved in the scandal to get her kid into college as we go back to school today. With this conversation is getting pretty vibrant because people are looking at it from their own particular safety, right? I mean, kids, they want to send their kids back to school because it's good for kids, but teachers who are older are going, no thanks. This is going to infect me, or I'm going to get it somehow. I'm in a more vulnerable state. So there's that tension that's going to arise, but we're getting down to the final nubs here.
Yeah, I mean, you even saw it yesterday in last week during the last week in Charlottesville, Albemarle, where you have the local councils and the board of supervisors trying to pass somewhat more restrictive regulations about gatherings as UVA comes back. Because on one hand, the folks there, I think, are very happy to have the economic engine rolling again to some extent in that area, but at the same time, they're very worried about the students bringing, back the virus, which we've seen in so many states. Young people have been the recent catalyst. And so now that's what's happening there. And then we're going to see all kinds of issues emerge at the universities because there's not a consistent policy across the public universities about whether you're going to have virtual education or in-class education and how they're going to determine that. Will this be determined by the university administration that we're going to offer this many in-person classes, or are they going to permit individual faculty members to make that decision about whether they're going to teach in person or online? And at the end of the day, what does the student do if they come to campus, but even while they're on campus, 3/4 of their classes are online? Are they going to begin to protest about tuition and ask for discounts for tuition? So we're going to see a couple of issues emerge very, very quickly because these universities are coming back in 2 or 3 weeks to see how smooth that goes, or whether we see some tension emerge between students and administrations over tuition and fees, dependent upon how many online courses they wind up having.
Yeah, and it's going to spread. There's going to be outbreaks on college campuses. It's just it's the nature of the beast. You saw the Miami Marlins had, I think, 14 coaches and players get infected, none of which were symptomatic, but they're gonna test positive, and that's sort of the dilemma. And today we saw announced in the Wall Street Journal, Moderna and Pfizer are on final stage of their testing for their vaccine. So we're at this moment in history where everyone wants to go back and do what they were doing. We have vaccines that are close to coming into cycle, and people are still so tense.
Yeah, and they're going to be that tense for a while because the vaccines, they're in the third phase of the vaccine where they have to now test 30 or 40,000 people for safety or efficacy. So the couple of things that are emerging on the vaccine front that are interesting. On one hand, there's a lot of optimism that they'll be able to find a vaccine. So at some point earlier on, there was some concern about whether or not we'd ever get a vaccine because we haven't had one for certain diseases like HIV. But at the same time, there's now a lot of optimism they're going to find a vaccine. Still, what they're now thinking is that most vaccines are going to take at least 2 doses that you're going to have to distribute, have to get them twice, get the vaccine, a month later get a booster perhaps. And then the question is, does it work with the most vulnerable populations, particularly the elderly? And then finally, the question is, how do you distribute them? As they've been saying, the vaccine's not the answer, vaccination is. And you have to make sure that that occurs in a timely way. And there's probably going to be all kinds of questions about distribution there. So in the short term, we're stuck with trying to negotiate things that we've never even considered before, like the K-12 system or the university system. It seems to me the university system is, as you said, probably a lot more vulnerable if you put people in dorms.
Right.
And that's one of the interesting features that perhaps, of the 10 largest school systems in Virginia, I think the vast majority of them, maybe all 10, will wind up starting off virtually. But at the same time, universities, which seem to be more vulnerable to COVID, are likely to start by bringing students back to campus.
Well, because their revenue models are very different than K through 12, and they depend on room and board. not just tuition, especially the lower endowed, the lesser endowed schools. They're under a financial pinch, and they've got to make that difficult call.
Right. And so, most of the universities, they've planned pretty intently. They're going to have social distancing. They're going to have plexiglass barriers in classrooms. They're going to have, sanitizer everywhere. But at the same time, it's going to, they have these strict rules about social distancing even outside the classroom. But you go to college because of the social networking, not because of the social distancing.
Right.
And that's going to be the challenge, is to try to ensure that that occurs. And at least so far, if we take a look at what's happened with the opening of bars and restaurants, and as you said, with the opening of Major League Baseball, may not be the easiest thing in the world to control.
What's very quickly, what's the timeline on a final vaccine in the last stage of testing?
I think it's going to be sometime this year, they're going to be able to discover whether these things are both safe and efficacious. Those are the two things. They need to know whether A, they work, and how they work, and with what populations they work best with. And then secondly, how safe are they? What's the safety profile? And what's the safety profile with each group as well, for younger people, older people, and the like. So that's going to take about 3 months. So you would say somewhere toward the end of this year, we're going to know, sometime I think in the October, December timeframe, whether some of these early vaccine candidates actually work. At the same time, they're trying to ramp up early manufacturing on some of these, and ramp up manufacturing of the needed accompaniment, such as glass vials, and the like. We're going to have to see whether they need refrigeration, and those kind of matters. And then, of course, you're going to have some plan, some strategy for distribution. Typically in the past, the CDC has been involved, has been the key leader of that. At the national level, the CDC has been shunted aside a little bit. They're actually going to have a National Academy of Medicine group look at this. And other people are advocating for some kind of national commission that would talk about what this distribution is going to look like, because that's going to be critical. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take multi-months. And then even beyond that, if you have even more distrust of government and experts emerging, you may have an issue of ensuring that enough people get vaccinated. At least right now, I think about 60-70% say they will. And I think folks are hoping that that number can be pushed even higher.
Well, let's just remember the 60 to 70 double doses out of a population of 330 million, rough estimates, that's 400 million doses.
Yeah, and that's what I said. It's, a lot of this COVID issue has been logistical in every possible way. And this is going to be one of the big logistical challenges for the government, in every possible way, making sure that, they do a better job with the, the necessaries for the vaccine than they did early on with the PPE. They need to be able to distribute it in a way that's seen to be fair and addresses the high-risk populations as well. And then finally, they're going to have to address the folks who are just skeptical of government and skeptical of science and really skeptical of vaccines.